begin the broadcast with a set of big numbers. First, 9 percentage points. That's the total jump in Vice President Leni Robredo's numbers in the latest Pulse Asia survey in March. The VP's preferential number now stands at 24%. She still has a long way to go to catch up to front-runner Ferdinand Marcos Jr., whose numbers slipped by 4 percentage points to 56%.
Now let's delve deeper into those numbers. By region, Robredo saw her numbers go up, especially in Balanced Luzon, which saw a 14 percentage point markup. Preference for her also went up in Visayas and Mindanao, both increasing by 9 percentage points. NCR, though, remains to be a tough region for Leni, with her numbers sliding in the metro. But that was also the case for Marcos Jr., whose numbers tanked across all regions. By class, VP Leni also had a stronger showing across classes C, D, and E, with preference for her in class C and D increasing by double digits. Marcos, on the other hand, tumbled in all three classes. Time for today's biggest headlines. I'm Gretchen Ho.
I'm Robbie Alampay. You're watching The Big Story. With little more than a month left before the elections, could the tide still turn in favor of Vice President Leni Robredo? While her numbers swelled in the latest Pulse Asia survey, it's still not enough to catch up to frontrunner Ferdinand Marcos Jr.
But political pundits would like to believe that much could still happen, especially now that the on-ground campaign seems to be giving the VP some momentum. Marian Enriquez with the big story.
The grand rallies may already be working its magic. This is how some political pundits viewed the sudden jump in Vice President Leni Robredo's survey number. In the March Pulse Asia survey, Robredo's numbers soared by 9 percentage points, climbing to 24%. She is still a long way behind closest rival Ferdinand Marcos Jr., whose numbers dipped by 4 percentage points to 56%. But despite that, UP political science professor Dr. Jean Franco said that the rallies might be working. After all, her numbers rose across all regions and classes.
It has created a momentum for Leni Robredo. She is connecting with voters, especially yung sa DNE. At makikita mo naman doon sa kanyang surge across regions except doon sa NCR.
Marcos' absence in debates may have also been a factor, according to Franco.
Nakukuhang impression ng mga supporters ni Bongbong Marcos ay tila hindi interesado itong si Bongbong Marcos na magpaliwanag tungkol sa kung ano ang balak niya sa Pilipinas.
But NCR might just be a stronghold for Marcos. Franco said it's a tough task for Robredo to shatter the numbers in the metro, as disinformation against the VP is rampant in the region. But there might still be a chance, says Franco, since the recent survey has yet to factor endorsements from local executives.
Marami ng mga local government officials na nagpahayag ng suporta kay VP Leni at mahalaga yon. Pangalawa, yung house-to-house campaigns. We have never seen this in past elections.
But with a little over a month left before the polls, can Robredo still overtake Marcos?
Base sa mga exit polls, 1 week before the election, 15% pa ang magde-decide. Okay. And then on the day itself, halos 20%, 18% yung nag-decide lang on the day itself. So kung magpapatuloy yung pattern na yon, mukhang may maihahabol pa si Robredo.
The Marcos camp said that they will remain focused to getting a 70% preferential rating. As for Team Robredo, the recent numbers is a reflection of the groundswell of support and that momentum is on their side. For News 5, Marian Enriquez, we are One News.
How should the Robredo and Marcos camps treat this survey? That big question and more with DLSU Political Science and International Studies Professor Dr. Julio Tihanki. Dr. Tihanki, welcome to The Big Story.
Good evening, Robbie. Thanks for having me.
Dr. Tihanki, so we see an upward trend for Leni Robredo. Mukhang nag-decline kay Bongbong Marcos, but at the same time, that's still a big lead. So what's the bottom line here?
Oh, well, after a brief period between January and February where the needle seemed to have been frozen, we are now seeing some movement. No? And the latest Pulse Asia survey is now reflecting the dramatic twists and turns in the past month. No? And the survey confirms what the other credible surveys like SWS, Octa Research, and Lilo have been hinting, that BBM at this point might have already peaked, with his numbers. On the other hand, we are seeing groundswell of support for Leni Robredo, and it appears that, and we have to confirm this in the succeeding surveys, that she's gaining momentum, as your report have already mentioned. So, yeah.
So there are some theories as to why Leni might be picking up. I mean, some of the earlier rallies could have created some kind of a bandwagon effect, but why are the Marcos numbers coming down?
Well, obviously, for a combination of factors, first and foremost would be the unanswered issues like the estate tax and other controversies, and perhaps his refusal to attend the forums and debates. And this is reminiscent of how FPJ lost the election in 2004. FPJ's refusal to attend the debates and forum allowed GMA to catch up with his number and eventually use state machinery to win the election.
Now, you mentioned the absence from the debates, and you corrected yourself on that first point, which I do want to ask as a final question. The estate taxes, what will that mean for the rest of the campaign?
This will be the Damocles sword on top of his head. It will affect his numbers eventually. His numbers are unprecedented, but BBM appears to be not unbeatable.
Okay, maraming salamat po, Dr. Tihanki. That was Dr. Julio Tihanki, DLSE professor. How are the other presidential candidates reacting to the latest Pulse Asia survey? Gretch gives us a rundown.
Robbie, the presidential candidates who continue to trail behind the frontrunner Ferdinand Marcos Jr. say they remain focused on the campaign. Manila Mayor Isko Moreno's camp slammed comments saying that the upcoming elections may be a two-way fight. Instead, they asserted that it will be a three-way race as Moreno continues to be the top second choice for president in the survey. Senator Manny Pacquiao, meanwhile, said that they are focusing on their campaign activities rather than the surveys. He added that they are working hard to reach and win over more people in the D and E classes. As for Senator Ping Lacson, he still doubted the pre-election polls as he remains at 2%. He also said what is more important to them is the direct engagement they have with people and not the numbers. These are the other big stories tonight. Unlike her running mate, Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte Carpio widens her lead in the latest Pulse Asia survey with a 56% voter preference for the vice presidency. Meanwhile, in preparation for the return of face-to-face classes, Teachers Dignity Coalition reveals some faculty members are shelling out money from their own pockets for the maintenance of classrooms. And more Filipinos made it to the Forbes World's Billionaires list for 2022, and we give you a rundown of the 20 wealthiest Pinoys. These big stories after the break.
watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. President Rodrigo Duterte is pushing for house-to-house inoculation as 27 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines are set to expire in July.
Meanwhile, the IATF is set to hold special vaccination days in parts of the country with low vaccination rates. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez reports.
With millions of COVID-19 vaccines nearing expiry, President Duterte is considering ordering house-to-house inoculation drives.
Yung hindi pa nabakunahan, marami pa yan. Kailangan lumabas na at mabakuna sila.
That's after Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship Joey Concepcion flagged that there are 27 million doses expiring in July because take-up for booster shots has been very slow. Latest data show 33 million people who are eligible for the third dose have yet to receive it. Health experts say there's a misconception that 2 shots gives enough protection.
Definitely, over time, the neutralizing antibodies induced by the vaccines wane, and the booster will really help protect you even longer and even better.
The low booster take-up is especially worrisome, considering the many large gatherings leading up to the elections, all of which experts say could turn into super spreader events. So even now, there's talk of changing the definition of fully vaccinated.
We have to include the booster shot in the definition of what is a fully vaccinated individual para maging insentibo para sa ating mga kababayan na magpabakuna.
The IATF is also set to hold special vaccination days in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, which has the lowest vaccination rate in the country. Health Secretary Francisco Duque says they will also request to extend the shelf life of some vaccine brands.
Yung po sinasabi nilang 25 to 27 million na mag-expire by July, ang tawag po natin dyan yung theoretical expiration. Hindi pa po ito expired.
The government said it's also donating the soon-to-expire doses to other countries, such as Myanmar and Papua New Guinea. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez, We Are One News.
Meanwhile, in preparation for Holy Week, Quiapo Church modifies some of its traditional practices to prevent the spread of COVID-19 among devotees. JC Cosico has the report.
After 2 years, devotees can once again express their faith after the Quiapo Church resumed the traditional pahalik. However, devotees are only allowed to touch the image of the Black Nazarene. Kissing and wiping it with handkerchiefs are still prohibited. Devotees will also have to sanitize first. Desiree became a devotee when her children got sick. She says she's happy with pahalik's resumption, but admits it will take some getting used to.
Okay na po yun, at least kahit pa paano yung kamay na namin. Kesa sa wala talaga, di ba?
Quiapo Church assures health protocols are still maintained.
A term lang yun, na gawain natin. Bawal pa munang halikan yung mga imahen. At hindi po hangarin ng gawain ng Semana Santa ang maging spreader ng virus. So, ang kailangan natin labanan ito.
Apart from this, Catholics may also have their visita iglesia at the church. They will also hold pabasa from Monday to Wednesday next week. Meanwhile, instead of the usual procession, the church will hold a motorcade of the Black Nazarene on Good Friday to avoid crowding. A replica procession will be held this week so that devotees won't have to bring their own images on Good Friday.
Dinadahan-dahan natin na maibalik muli under new normal yung mga gawain natin nang hindi kinaliligtaan yung pagsunod sa mga safety protocols natin.
Meanwhile, the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines, or CBCP, says Catholics are discouraged from doing harmful activities for penance during Holy Week.
We are actually discouraging penitents from doing yung mga katulad ng pagpapapako sa krus, self-flagellation. Hindi naman kailangan yun.
The Church says it's best to commemorate Holy Week in a solemn and safe manner. For News 5, JC Cosico, We Are One News.
While Ferdinand Marcos Jr. saw a dip in his pulsation numbers for the top seat, his running mate and Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte continues to widen her lead in the vice presidential race. Duterte continues to distance herself from the pack with a 3-point rise in March that brings her numbers to 56%. A far second, Senate President Tito Soto with a 20% voter preference. VP Lenny Robredo's running mate, Senator Kiko Pangilinan, also saw a 4-point jump, now at 15%. Vice Presidential candidates Dr. Willie Ong and House Deputy Speaker Lito Atienza continue to trail behind with single-digit numbers. As for the senatorial race, TV personality Rafi Tulfo still leads the survey with a 65% voter preference. He is followed by former Senator Loren Legada with 58%. The rest of the top 12 are composed of returning senators Alan Peter Cayetano and Chis Escudero, former Public Works Secretary Mark Villar, and re-elections Win Gatchalian and Mig Subiri. Also in the top are Senator Joey Villanueva, actor Robin Padilla, former Vice President Jojo Binay, former Senators Jingoy Estrada and JV Ejercito, re-electionist Senator Risa Ontiveros, and former Quezon City Mayor Herbert Bautista have also made it to the list.
For the big story in sports, a new training facility for national athletes will soon rise at the First Pacific Leadership Academy in Antipolo. With the help of the MVP Sports Foundation and premium megastructures, construction has begun for the new Center for Sports Excellence. Work already started on a new boxing and badminton centers. Basketball courts and weightlifting gyms are also in the pipeline. The Center for Sports Excellence aims to be the new home for elite teams and athletes, supported by the MVP Sports Foundation. Time for another quick break. When we return. Not enough funds in preparation for the return to face-to-face classes. Some teachers are forced to shell out money to help prepare classrooms for the new normal. And real estate tycoon and former Senator Manny Villar is still the richest Filipino in the 2022 Forbes World's Billionaires list with a net worth of $8.3 billion. The details after the break.
Still watching The Big Story, I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. Preparations for face-to-face classes have begun, and some teachers say they are forced to shell out money from their own pockets for the retrofitting of classrooms.
While other teachers are pulling together donations from barangays and parents, Shaila Francisco has this story.
In 2 weeks, Mayamot Elementary School in Antipolo targets to start face-to-face classes for grade 6 students. That's why teacher Arlene is now busy preparing her classroom. But she says the fund given by the DepEd to the school is not enough. Aside from pulling together donations from parents and their barangay, she admits shelling out some 3,000 pesos for the classroom.
Pag talagang mahal mo yung ginagawa mo, mahal mo yung pagtuturo mo, parang di mo na rin iisipin kung magkano yung nagastos mo doon sa classroom mo. Kaya hindi ka lang dito
However, it's not just Teacher Arlene. The Teachers Dignity Coalition reveals that some of their members are even resorting to taking out loans, just so they can comply with the Education Department's condition for in-person classes.
And worse, nangungutang yung ilan sa ating mga teachers, no, dahil syempre alam mo yung pera naman kasi para sa pamilya yan no, bilang na yan no. Hindi na natin yan na pwedeng bawasan no.
The DepEd has allotted 977 million pesos for the maintenance and other operating expenses of DepEd schools that will resume physical classes. But the group says this is not enough.
We can volunteer, no. Huwag naman na makasanayan kasi baka na exploitative na no at tumagal exploitation na ito. Hindi na ito volunteerism.
The DepEd responded to the issue, saying that money spent for classrooms beyond the given budget may be reimbursed.
Kung mayroong nagsasabi na sila ay nangungutang, ang sabi namin isusubmit yung mga resibo nila para sila ay ma-refund sa kanilang sinasabing personal na gastos. Isubmit nila yung kanilang gastos at tingnan natin kung anong magagawa natin.
Some 17,000 schools are conducting face-to-face classes, while some 22,000 are getting ready to follow suit. Shaila Francisco, we are One News.
Many areas in Davao de Oro and Agusan del Sur were submerged in floods as a low-pressure area spotted off Mindanao continues to bring heavy rains. Jem Avancenia with the story.
With incessant rain since Wednesday, several parts of Agusan and Davao are now flooded. In Compostela, Davao de Oro, houses are now submerged in shoulder-level flood waters. Residents of Purok 14 in Barangay Poblacion said they have received no response for rescue since Wednesday night.
Dapat nirescue kami. Hindi kami nilikas. Tumatawag kami kagabi, walang dumating. Ngayon pa kami nakalabas kasi napakalalim.
Those who were rescued spent the night in evacuation areas.
Sana man lang may tumulong sa amin. Bigyan kami tig 5 kilong bigas. Wala. 9:00 na hindi pa kami kumakain, pati yung mga bata.
In Moncayo Town, many residents were evacuated specifically in barangays Upper Ulip and Pasian. Some roads were also closed to traffic due to landslides, including one in Mawab and another in Nabunturan. In Agusan del Sur, some barangays in Bunawan and Trento are also submerged in flood. Almost 200 families have been evacuated at the Brookside Elementary School. Authorities advise residents living in flood and landslide-prone areas to remain vigilant and evacuate early if needed. For News 5, Jem Avancenia, we are One News.
Planning on going out tonight? Better take a literal rain check or carry your umbrellas, especially to those in Quezon, Bicol, Mimaropa, Visayas, and Mindanao. This, as State Weather Bureau Pag-asa says, scattered rain showers and cloudy skies are set to continue. The low-pressure area is last located over the coastal waters of Caraga, Davao Oriental, or 130 kilometers east of Davao City as of 3 p.m. today. Meanwhile, a tropical depression has developed outside the Philippine area of responsibility. As of 3 p.m. today, the tropical depression was located 2,485 kilometers east of Mindanao, with maximum winds at 45 kilometers per hour, gustiness up to 55 kph, and is slowly moving west-northwestward, and it is expected to intensify into a tropical storm in the next 24 hours. Now, according to Pag-asa, the TD may enter the Philippine area of responsibility by Sunday or Monday, but is not expected to make landfall.
And the rich get richer. Despite the COVID-19 pandemic, more Filipinos were included in the 2022 Forbes World's Billionaires list.
Topping that list among Filipinos is none other than real estate tycoon and former Senate President Manny Villar. Villar is joined by 19 other Filipinos who made it to the list. Now, according to Forbes, Villar's estimated net worth ballooned to $8.3 billion this year. Villar is now ranked 263rd among global billionaires, a big jump from last year's standing of 352.
The second richest Filipino, Ports tycoon Enrique Razon Jr. with worldwide ranking of 369 and net worth of $6.7 billion. Third wealthiest Filipinos were Henry C. Jr. of SM Investments and Andrew Tan of Alliance Global Group. They both ranked 1,096 with net worth of $2.8 billion. Brothers Hans C. and Herbert C., meanwhile, shared the fifth spot with an estimated net worth of $2.6 billion each. Among the 20 Filipino billionaires, 5 were newcomers to the Forbes list. These are Betty Ang, Grace Uy, Nari Ramesh, and Sander Genomal, and Dennis Anthony Uy.
Kanina, tinitignan ko tong listahan na to. Sabi ko, 15 out of 20 Filipino-Chinese. May pag-asa ako in the future.
Ako, ilang zero na lang. Aabutin ako doon.
Kasi tinecheck ko kanina yung yung contact list ko kung may kilala ako doon. Hihingi akong advice.
Ayan.
Well, sana, usually naman pagka Filipino-Chinese, napakasimple lang ng pamumuhay ng lifestyle, but also very hardworking and matipid. Yan ang sikreto.
Basta ka umabot ka doon, tandaan mo mga kaibigan mo.
Well, that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on.
Wash hands.
And stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Hall. We are One News. Have a good evening.